Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over our next schedule preview of this 2020 offseason, and it will be over the Illinois Fighting Illini. This was a team that went 6-7 in 2019. Not all that bad of a season at all for Illinois, considering how they've fared out in recent years. So for sure, it wasn't all that bad of a season, but how will they do in 2020 is what we're going over here today. We're going to be going over a few players that Illinois will be losing, who they're going to be returning, and also going over their schedule for the first time this offseason, starting off with the games that Illinois has had since November. Of course, this team, once again, 6-7 is not all that bad of a record. They were actually 6-4 at one point this season. They beat Rutgers to kick off November, 38-10, good win there. And they also had a good win on the road against Michigan State, 37-34. So, once again, they were 6-4 at one point this season, and it looked like Illinois could be a 7, possibly 8-win team. And that is kind of wild to think about. They lost to Iowa the next week, 10-19, and considering Iowa's a higher caliber team than Illinois had played, certainly it's not all that bad of a loss. They only lost by 9, and they stuck around for the majority of the game. They lost to Northwestern, though, the next week, 10-29, and this was a loss that certainly is pretty inexcusable. I mean, Northwestern was a team that was probably the worst one outside of Rutgers and possibly Maryland in the 2019 season in the Big Ten, so honestly, that 10-29 loss to Northwestern was kind of disappointing, especially with it being at home. But nonetheless, they ended up going into a bowl game with California, and they lost it 20-35. But once again, it was a great season for Illinois, no doubt about it. There's really nothing to be upset about if you're a fan. September to October, they were 4-4, and then from November to the postseason, they were 2-3, and they kicked off November 2-0. Once again, it really looked like Illinois could have been a huge surprise team going in through the rest of November after coming off of 2 good wins, but they had 2 not so great losses to finish off the regular season, and I think that's what kind of affected them once they got to the bowl season. Nonetheless, let's go over the returning production for Illinois now. They return their quarterback, or both their quarterbacks, Brandon Peters and Robinson. Brandon Peters was the main quarterback for Illinois this season, and he had just over 1,800 yards of passing as well as 18 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. So he had a pretty good season. He didn't have a whole lot of yardage, but his touchdown-interception ratio really wasn't all that terrible. They do lose their top running back, Reggie Corbin. That's going to be probably their toughest loss on this offense. He had just over 700 yards of rushing, as well as 7 touchdowns. And they also lose their second running back, Andre Brown, which he had just over 650 yards and 5 touchdowns. So they lose both their running backs, and that is certainly going to be their toughest losses, no doubt about it. I mean, this running back core is going to need some people to come up and step up and fill in those spots if they're going to make it to a bowl game once again in 2020. They return their top receiver in Josh. He had just over 600 yards of receiving as well as 9 touchdowns. I'm not going to worry about pronouncing that last name. But they return their second receiver in Donnie Navarro as well. So, they return their receivers, their 2 major ones at least. And so that is really good for Illinois looking into 2020. There's 1 offensive lineman, 3 defensive linemen, and 1 linebacker. So this defense is losing, and they also lose 1 in the secondary. So they lose 5 on the defense, which really isn't all that bad. I'd consider it a moderate amount of losses on the defense. But 1 offensive lineman really isn't all that bad. So, certainly for Illinois, they should be looking pretty good on the offensive line. And honestly, the quarterback position should be pretty good too. I think Brandon Peters has a lot of potential to improve if he can stay healthy, that's for sure. Chances for a better season in 2020. It's kind of tough to say right now, of course, with it being this early on in the offseason. That's kind of the point of a schedule preview. Just kind of go over a quick preview in the early parts of the offseason. But I certainly think it's possible for Illinois if this offense can play well, and also if they can get a couple running backs to step up and take the places of Corbin and Dre Brown. Looking at your schedule for the first time this offseason, you got Illinois State to kick off this season on September 4th at home. Should be an easy win there. You also got UConn on September 12th. Of course, they're from a better conference, but UConn certainly is not all that great of a football team. You also got Bowling Green. So those 3 games are certainly very winnable. It would not surprise me a single bit to see Illinois start off the season 3-0. But after that, you got conference play, and you've got 2 road games to kick it off. You got Rutgers on the road, which shouldn't be all that terrible either. But you got Nebraska, which Nebraska is a huge toss-up team. It's really tough to say whether they'll be good or not. With it being a road game, and Nebraska is always a tough atmosphere, so you got to watch out there. I'll consider that a tough matchup. You got Purdue then at home as well as Minnesota in back-to-back weeks. Shouldn't be all that terrible. But then you kind of go into your toughest part of the schedule. You got Wisconsin, Iowa, Indiana, and Ohio State in back-to-back weeks. I mean, Wisconsin's going to be tough next season. You got a road game that's going to be in Madison. You got Iowa, which will be at home, but Iowa's a tough team. Then Indiana, of course, I mean, they've got potential to be pretty good, and that's also a road game. They got Ohio State at home, and which Ohio State, as we all know, should be once again a really great team, a big contender for the college football playoff once again in 2020. So those 4 games will certainly be your toughest ones, and I would expect Illinois to win at least one of those, probably the Indiana game, but I wouldn't be stunned to see them win a second one, possibly that Iowa game. Maybe they could pull a major upset over Ohio State. Of course, they pulled a major upset over Wisconsin last season, so it's certainly possible. But you finish off your regular season against Northwestern on the road, just kind of how you did last season. But nonetheless, here's what I'm expecting. I'm going to give you 3 guaranteed wins for Illinois. I'm going to say you beat Illinois State, UConn, and Bowling Green. That gives you 3 wins right off the bat. And then I do expect you to get 2 more wins. No doubt about it. Your record estimation will be 5-7 to 7-5. So I do expect 5-7 to be the worst possible record for Illinois going into 2020. And 7-5 will be the best possible record for Illinois. So I certainly think there is a good chance that Illinois makes a bowl game, but there's also that slim chance that they do end up missing it by 1 or 2 wins. I do expect it to be close. So certainly every single game is going to matter here. If they lose to Illinois State, UConn, or Bowling Green, I'd expect their bowling chances to pretty much be over at that point. But yeah, I mean, of course, Rutgers, once again, that's a very winnable game if you can win on the road. Purdue's very winnable. Indiana's winnable. But yeah, you do have some tough home games, though, that's for sure. The road games are mainly your tough ones in the conference. Well, of course, you got Rutgers once again. If you had Rutgers at home, I'd probably consider that a guaranteed win. But yeah, once again, I mean, they're road games, so that's going to make it a little bit tougher. But I certainly think that Illinois can win them. Nonetheless, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Illinois. Also, let me know your schedule predictions. Let me know your record predictions as well. But yeah, thank you all for sticking around. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts once again on Illinois in comments below. And stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I will see you all later.